Hi, and welcome back. 5% lead, a lot of the polls are saying, is now for Barack Obama. Others are saying 18% of the electorate is undecided. I think both campaigns realize there's a lot of fluidity taking place here, and that a lot of things could happen to change their minds. Obviously, one that has happened, which has erased whatever lead, in many polls at any rate, not all polls, that John McCain had, is the financial crisis, which is being laid at the feet of the Republicans. The Wall Street Journal has an article today which says what I've been saying now for a few days since I became aware of the history of this. I don't think that one can dishonestly, but one cannot honestly say that the Republicans are the primary party, the primary villain in what has happened. It is the Democrats, because they did not want to oversee Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two quasi-governmental agencies which handled the majority of loans, and especially subprime loans in this country. By the way, subprime loan, this reminds me, and this may be helpful to some of you. I remember as a kid, I've never mentioned this. It's a real isolated little tidbit of my own history. When I was a kid, on the news, I would hear a lot about Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots. And it was in the news all the time. They were fighting. The problem is, I didn't know what a Cypriot was. I had no idea. And I'll bet a lot of you hearing me right now, even well-educated people, have no idea what a Cypriot is. Is it a drink? I'll have a chocolate Cypriot. What is it? And I was very annoyed, and I must have been 10 years old, and I was very annoyed that they never explained it. At least, how about once every 200 times they said the term? And for those who may not know what a Cypriot is. Now, a Cypriot is somebody who lives in Cyprus. But you wouldn't know that if nobody told you. And I have a feeling that the same thing holds true here for subprime loans. A lot of people hear the term. Very rarely in articles is it explained. And it is those loans that were granted to people who were the least economically capable of handling the loans, wherein their income had not been verified, or they were given 100% to loan at a very, very cheap or very low interest rate, which immediately skyrocketed later on the assumption that real estate prices would always go up, an assumption that is not rational, because they never have and they don't. And so that's what we're talking about when we talk about subprime loans. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were the two agencies which in and of themselves were problematic because they were private. After all, you could buy stock in them, and their CEOs made millions of dollars. But they had one great advantage over other private companies: the government backed them. So no matter how many subprime loans they would give, they'd keep making money on loans because the bank gets a fee. And if they collapsed, as they have, the government will take care of them. Is that cool, or is that cool? How come I never get involved with such things? You know, if I make mistakes, I pay for them. Wouldn't that be nice, Al, if we had a government-backed show, no matter what, no matter how much we just screwed everything up, the government would bail us out, and in the meantime, we'd make millions of bucks. In the next life, I want to be on a government-backed private corporation. So what happened was the Republicans saw that this was a big problem. Yes, they did, not the Democrats, the Republicans. And they tried to pass laws, and when they did, to regulate. In other words, to regulate. To say to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, wait a minute, hey, you can't give all these subprime loans. Maybe some, but it came to 20% of what they in fact held. So the Republicans tried to pass laws, and the Democrats stopped them. And I have been reading to you about that for days now. And there's an article in today's Wall Street Journal by two authors. One of them is a professor of finance and economics at Columbia Business School. And he makes the point at the end, if the Democrats had let the 2005 legislation come to a vote, the huge growth in the subprime and Alt-A loans, it's a little better than a subprime loan, portfolio of Fannie and Freddie could not have occurred, and the scale of the financial meltdown would have been substantially less. The same politicians who today decry the lack of intervention to stop excess risk-taking in 2005-2006 were the ones who blocked the only legislative effort that could have stopped it. And he's, of course, talking about the Democrats. And I quoted for you Barney Frank. He has another Barney Frank quote, and he's important because he was the ranking Democrat on the House Financial Services Committee. He described the arrangement with these government agencies in 2003. Quote, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have played a very useful role in helping to make housing more affordable, a mission that this Congress has given them in return for some of the arrangements which are of some benefit to them to focus on affordable housing. What, in English, as opposed to congressional diplomatic language, you guys keep giving irresponsible loans to the poor so that they could have better housing, and we'll back you here in the government. That's what it was. That's what he said. Wouldn't it be nice? I saw Barney Frank was on one TV, and I didn't get to hear what he said, but I would love to know what he says today about all of his opposition to any reform. This is another reason this notion change, that they will bring change. They won't bring change. They're the folks who stifle change. Barack Obama stifled change on Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. It happens to be that it was John McCain who wanted change. The lack of truth told on these matters bothers me more than who wins. I've always said my whole life that truth is the most important macro value. Now the Democrats are blaming the financial crisis on, quote, deregulation. This is a canard. There has indeed been deregulation in our economy in long-distance phone rates, airline fares, securities, brokerage, and trucking, to name just a few, and this has produced much innovation and lower consumer prices. But the primary deregulation in the financial world in the last 30 years permitted banks to diversify their risks geographically and so on. It wasn't a matter of not being regulated. That's what Alan Combs kept yelling at me when I was on Hannity and Combs Friday. Come on, Dennis, it's the Republicans who wanted deregulation. Now the chickens are coming home to roost. But the truth is that in the regulation that matters of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, it was the Republicans who wanted regulation, and the Democrats, in the name of giving affordable housing to poor people, opposed. Folks, that's the truth. Do what you want with it, but that's the truth.